Our next panel will reflect on the legacy of USJC and its impact, speaking of making change. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Jennifer Hirano, Mr. Colbert Matsumoto, Mr. Masa Tanaka, and Ms. Yuko Kaifu for a Legacy of Impact, USJC's 15-year journey and future vision.
So much for having us, and it's a great pleasure for me to moderate this important panel discussion with such a distinguished, impressive group of speakers. It's, of course, USJC is all about the current, present, and the future, but it also is helpful to occasionally look back at the history and genesis of the organization to reconfirm the vision and mission of the founding mother and fathers. So I'd like to make a brief introduction of each of the speakers today. First, sitting next to me is Colbert Matsumoto. He is the chairman of Tradewind Group based in Hawaii. He's a founding director of the board of US-Japan Council and currently serves on the President's Advisory Board. Thank you, Colbert. Yes, you can. Thank you. And next to Colbert is Masaaki Tanaka. Everybody calls him Masa. So if I may, I call you Masa. He used to be my big boss. He is a former representative director and deputy president of Mitsubishi UFJ Financial Group. He's also former chairman and president and CEO of Nippon Paint Holdings. He has been serving as the vice chair of the USJC Board of Counselors for quite a few years. Oh, yes, thank you. Sitting next to him is Jennifer Hirano. As everybody knows, she's the daughter of late Irene Hirano Inoue. Is a business development analyst for Alphabet, identifying development opportunities within the Google suite of products. She serves on the board of counselors for USJC and the board of governors of Japanese American National Museum. So thank you, Jennifer. So before we dive into some of the topics that I prepared for you, I like everyone to pay attention to the screen to see a short video. Some of you might have seen it already yesterday, but it was produced by Diane Afkami, who is on the board of directors. It's a short history of or activities of USJC.
USJC was founded in 2009 by Irene Hirano Inoue, who had unparalleled vision and leadership. She was determined to create an organization that would be unique and distinctive and bridge the relationships between the Japanese and the Nikkei community in the United States. 3 legendary leaders provided input which formed the core of what the organization represents today. Entrepreneur George Artani said, "The organization must be represented by select Japanese Americans on a national level." Scientist Dr. Paul Terasaki said, "The service offerings must be unique and must be creative." And Senator Dan Inoue said, "You must gain support from the political sectors of both countries." Irene laid the groundwork to accomplish all of the above with dignity and grace. The political, business, and philanthropic sectors in the United States and Japan are bonded because of her leadership.
The seed for USJC actually was planted in 2000 with the first class of the Japanese American Leadership Delegation. It was an opportunity for Japanese American leaders to meet with leaders at the highest levels in Japan, to have meaningful dialogue, and to create trans-Pacific relationships. The hope is that it would spark people-to-people bilateral relationships educate the Japanese about the Nikkei experience, and help form a network of Japanese American leaders across the United States.
So JLD really changed my life in 2006. It kind of gave me a different view of the world, that there was an opportunity for me as both a Japanese Cuban American to not only do business in Japan, but also expand the cultural part of my ideas and vision. We have been able to take delegations from Miami, help them connect with different leaders in Japan. We've taken 2 different mayors from our county government, 2 mayors from our city government, and we've connected Miami and Tokyo, and specifically Japan, and to help bring business both ways, import and export. Through a connection with one of my JLD colleagues, I really learned more about my family, and that led to connecting with some family members who were actually in Washington, D.C., and family members that are in Fukuoka. And I've kept in touch with them ever since, and that's really a tribute to the building of relationships through JLD and US-Japan Council.
Irene would have been so proud to see how JLD alumni have contributed to strengthening US-Japan relations over the years. And she would be delighted by the success of the Tomodachi Initiative and the Emerging Leaders Program, both embracing USJC's focus on the younger generation.
Being part of the Emerging Leaders Program in 2018 has been one of the most impactful experiences in my life. I grew up in the Japanese American community and had a strong sense of my JA heritage, but USJC and ELP really expanded my network and created so many more opportunities that I hadn't foreseen. Then in 2023, a small delegation visited Japan, including Jennifer Hirano, Josh Mori, and Lauren Ohata. We met with leaders in business, entertainment, and politics, and they sparked so many new opportunities in Los Angeles that we hadn't even imagined. From hosting an awards platform lifting up Japanese and JA leaders in the entertainment industry, to inviting Japanese political leaders to join discussions on how local politics and business is global. USJC to me is family. It's about having friends and trusted colleagues that I can talk about bilateral issues and even life issues. And as an ELP, for me, it's about continuing the legacy that USJC leaders and trailblazers built for us, so that this sense of community is here for future generations.
Thank you. So we've seen a wide range of activities, very successful one over the last 15 years or so, but it wasn't necessarily that. Some 20 years ago or so, prehistory time, back in 2000, 2001, I was a Foreign Service officer posted to the Consul General's office in Los Angeles. And at that time, many Japanese Americans were avoiding a trip to Japan or avoided learning the Japanese language because there was some lingering emotions or hesitation to dive into U.S.-Japan relations. At that time, a group of Japanese American leaders thought, of course, led by the late Senator Daniel Inoue, Irene Hirano, and a few others were worried about it because Japanese American people would have been losing their identity as Japanese Americans, but then yet they were playing very active roles in mainstream America. So they came to Consul General Kono and said that there's got to be some undertakings to reconnect Japanese Americans with Japan. And here, their Japanese American Leadership Delegation Program was created and was made into an annual one, which served as the basis, one of the bases of the USJC. So we've gone a long way, and these speakers here have eyewitness and have made great efforts to make it where we are now. So Colbert, you are one of the founding members of the board. Can you share with us a little bit about the founding principle, vision, and mission of that time?
Sure. As I reflect on the history of the U.S.-Japan Council, while it was officially started in 15 years ago, I really look at a year 2004 as really being the point in time in which there was a gathering in Washington, D.C., sponsored by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where consul generals from across the United States, as well as leaders from various regions of the United States, were assembled. And at that meeting in D.C., Senator Inoue gave a very impassioned speech where he called for the creation of a national organization of Japanese American leaders to play a leading role in building the bilateral relationship between both Japan and the United States. And at that time, Senator Inoue said that the time was right for the creation of an organization like that, because as he well understood as a war hero, Medal of Honor winner in World War II, he understood that for 60 years after the end of World War II, Japanese Americans in the United States were dogged by prejudice and the stigma associated with the war. But over that period of time, the role of Japanese Americans in American society had changed and had transformed and they had become prominent in all aspects of American society. And he himself exemplified the extent to which Japanese Americans had become accepted and recognized as important leaders in American society, because he had been selected as Senate President pro tem, which was the third highest position in the American government, where he would be the third in line to succeed the President of the United States in the event of a vacancy. And so it was Senator Inoue that called for the creation of this organization. But the other reason why he called for creation of the organization led by Japanese Americans, because he understood that as Japanese Americans, we shared a common heritage with Japan and the people of Japan. And that gave us an ability to really navigate the relationship between our two countries and the cultural differences that exist between most of the United States and Japan. And so that basically gave the people who were in that room at that time the marching orders as to what to do. And it was Irene Hirano that took that and ran with it over the course of the next 5 years to really network across the country, to get the people in different parts of the country to agree that, yes, let's assemble to form the U.S.-Japan Council.
Yeah, I remember that Senator Inoue advocated for this type of organization, not to support Japan, the position of Japan, but then for the support of U.S.-Japan relationship. And sometimes you Japanese have to hear constructive advice or constructive criticism. So that's what his vision was. So thank you, Colbert. Now, Masa, you joined USJC perhaps 1 year after it was launched, was inaugurated, and then since then, you played an indispensable role to make USJC such a great success, particularly by calling other Japanese corporate representatives to support the organization. And you were then in the U.S., but then when you returned to Japan, you continued your role or expanded your roles to lead the Japan side of the effort. So, but then my question is, why did you decide to join USJC?
Well, in 2007 until 2009, I was the CEO of Union Bank, and I was in San Francisco. Now, at that time, I was serving on the board of Japanese American National Museum, together with Senator Inoue and Irene. And there, I met them, and they were planning to create this organization. But I heard from my colleagues over there that they were sort of struggling to invite the Japanese businessmen to the board of councilors. And the reason why I joined the board of councilors of USJC was probably driven by two factors. One is official, the other one is private. The official factor was Union Bank was a subsidiary of Mitsubishi UFJ, but before there was the local bank called the Bank of Tokyo of California, owned by the Bank of Tokyo. And this, when this subsidiary was created, there was a regulation in the states that was in the middle of 1950s. If the Japanese company, Japanese bank, is willing to create a subsidiary in or the bank in California, the ownership structure has to be such that the majority has to be owned by the local investors. It was very difficult, obviously, in those days for the Japanese company to, find the local investors. But at that time, Japanese Americans, supported the Bank of Tokyo to create the Bank of Tokyo of California, which eventually became a Union Bank. Without support from the Japanese American community, the Bank of Tokyo, or that at that time, Bank of Tokyo was the only one bank which was allowed to conduct international businesses. Unless we were supported by the Japanese American community, that company would not have been established. That was one history that I just wanted to share. And so this legacy still remains. The private side is in my my grandmother's brother was an immigrant from Japan to the US. And he had two sons born in the States. They became MIS soldiers during the war and came back to Japan as an interpreter for General MacArthur. And they were MIS soldiers, and therefore they were very much fluent in both in English and Japanese. They came to my mother's home, which is the temple in Shiga Prefecture, by the way. And I saw the picture, and where there was one Japanese look soldier wearing a U.S. Army's uniform, surrounded my mother's family members. And I have been just wondering what this picture would mean. But while I was in California, my colleagues at the Union Bank found that one of them was still alive in Boston. So I went to Boston and met him. At that time, President Obama was planning to give the Medal of Honor to those Japanese American soldiers. My relative didn't know that was happening. And those were, and I asked USJC colleagues to invite him to the ceremony in Washington, D.C., and he went there. And those two things were, so driving factor for me to join the USJC. But probably more than that, the largest driving factor for myself was because Japanese business associations were not very much supportive to the USJC's founding at that time. So I thought probably it's my role to be the first Japanese businessman to join this organization. And since that time, it's been already 15 years, and I have enjoyed every moment working together with my colleagues of USJC.
Thank you. And you became very good friends of both Senator Inoue and Irene Hirano Inoue, so thank you. Jennifer, you are the daughter of Irene, and you were brought up looking at your mother, always working, right? Can you tell us a bit about how you were inspired by her? So you are here and you're being on the board of counselors and of USJC and the museum as well. And can you tell us a little bit about how she inspired you?
Sure. Yeah. One of the common threads in all of my mom's work was really thinking about mentorship and the next generation and how to uplift the generation that was going to succeed her. She was really tireless, and so many of you have shared with me, how she impacted your careers or your personal lives, which is really very meaningful to me. But when it came to USJC and the founding, she was so passionate and so motivated. It was something that her and Senator Inoue felt so strongly about. They were really proud of their Japanese American heritage. They did not take lightly their role as a representative of our community. And USJC was kind of a culmination of all of the things that they really wanted to achieve, which was to find the very best and the brightest who would be interested in continuing to strengthen the US-Japan relationship, and to help them build networks and relationships that they personally had felt were so instrumental to their own personal success. So, a lot of you who did a JAL delegation trip with my mom or traveled with her know that she stayed up really late. And she was usually first up in the morning. Most of you had emails from her in the middle of the night. But I think it was all really fueled by this desire and this inspiration, really, by all of the members and everybody who helped to contribute to USJC's success. And so for me personally, surrounding myself with good people who want to do good work is something that has been really instrumental for me.
Yeah, and she was really tireless, and she could drink a lot too.
Yes.
And she was still looking somber, so that's something that I admired her. Well, by the way, Senator Inoue, after he got married with Irene, he said, she always is up when I go to bed. And when I wake up, she was already working. So that's how she was. But thank you. So this is supposed to be a very short panel discussion. So probably my last question for each one of you is that what, in your assessment, what has been the biggest achievement of USJC over the last 15 years? And what is your vision about the future? Colbert?
I think that the assembly today reflects the success of the council. The fact that we have successfully organized across the United States over 1,000 members who are leaders in their very respective communities and well-respected citizens of the United States who have engaged with this organization is something that would have made both Senator Inoue and Irene so proud. And the commitment that's reflected by all of these people towards strengthening the bilateral relationship between the two countries is precisely what Senator Inoue sought, because at the time that he called for the creation of the organization, America was enamored with China and had Japan had sort of lost its glow at that point in time. And so a lot of his colleagues had turned their attention to China as opposed to Japan and were more interested in engaging with China. And he understood that the bilateral relationship was one of strategic importance, and relationships like that need to be fostered. It cannot just be opportunistically taken advantage of at the particular point in time. And so he wanted an organization that would basically ensure that that relationship would be fostered over time, despite the different kinds of ups and downs that might occur, because that's what true relationships and friendships are based on trust. And trust is based upon the actions that take place between people. And that's why the US-Japan Council as a people-to-people organization is one that fosters that kind of trust.
Thank you, Colbert. Masa?
I simply echo what Colbert mentioned. Yesterday and today, we have over 700 people gathering in this room, discussing how we could enhance the relationship between the two countries. And because we have grown so rapidly, and now have so many members of this organization, as a result, we were able to attract a lot of very distinguished speakers to this table. And so that has been a great success, even though we should not forget that this organization was created by Japanese American people, and still they are playing a very key role. But they opened the door to all the people who are committed and dedicated to strengthening the relationship between the two countries. And as a result, this organization has grown to this point. And I am sure we will be able to attract many more people to join this organization in the future.
Right, thank you. Jennifer?
So I had shared that mentorship and the next generation of leadership was really important to my mom. So USJC has accomplished so much in its first 15 years, but I really look at the success of the Tomodachi and Emerging Leaders programs as something that I think she personally would have been really, really just inspired by and impressed by how large it's grown. You know, as somebody who was always looking for ways to make seats at the table for our growing diverse community so that there would be new voices. I think the fact that USJC invests the time and the resources and the thought leadership into these programs really sets it apart as a forward-thinking organization. In terms of the future, I know that both my mom and the senator were really hopeful that the future would hold more Japanese Americans who were interested in going into elected office. And that's something that was really important to them. So for me personally, I share that hope, and I have a sort of a small wish that there is somewhere today in one of our Tomodachi or Emerging Leaders programs, somebody who's feeling a call to public service and who, by being a part of this organization and being a part of this membership, is inspired to follow that path and feels supported in doing so.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Well, actually, as we have revisited the history, was the USJC was founded by a small number of visionary leaders, including some of you who are here, not knowing where it's going, if it could be well funded in the future. But here we are. We have close to 900 members. And we have 700 plus people who gather here once a year, no matter where and when it's held. So it showcases the big success of the organization. And of course, everybody knows that this past May, at the time of former Prime Minister Kishida's visit to Washington, D.C., and the joint statement by President Biden and Prime Minister Kishida, USJC was mentioned perhaps 2-3 times as the key organization, people-to-people ties organization. So we should be very, very proud of that. And the future success of the organization hinges upon us. We should keep supporting the organization, participating and engaging in all kinds of activities for many more years to come. So with that, I'd like to conclude this panel, and thank you so very much. Thank you.